Okay, welcome everyone. Here we are with Justin Blau. He is a DJ, also known as Just Blau. He's frequently, among the music producers in the major music festivals. He produces remixes for super top pop stars from Katy Perry to Rihanna. And now he's exploring how music and crypto can work together. So, super interesting what he's been up to. I'm really excited to get into all of the details. So, welcome, Justin, to the show. Thanks so much for joining me.
And thanks for having me.
Um, so, really excited to hear about what you're doing in crypto, but would love to just start from the beginning and get more into your background. I read somewhere that you ditched a job in Wall Street to start producing music. So I would love to hear about that story.
Sure. Yeah. I was in college at Washington University in St. Louis. I was studying finance and kind of on track to go work at BlackRock Asset Management. And I was studying derivatives in college. Love kind of the entire world of finance still today. But music was taking off thanks to Facebook and SoundCloud. A couple of my songs went viral, and I started playing at colleges across the country while I was still in college, while I was a junior. So I decided to drop out of school and pursue music full time, and it ended up working out. But in the background, I had always had that passion for the financial world. And of course, as you know, distributed ledger technology has been one of the most innovative and revolutionary forces in finance in the past decade. I always kind of had my eye on it as I was, of course, journeying down the music route. So that's kind of the quick background on me.
Nice. Well, that must have been such a risk, like hard decision to make. I guess like if you're following your passion, it's not that hard, but still kind of risky to take that route of making music.
I was lucky that my economics professor actually was able to convince my parents to let me drop out. But at the time, it was just a leave of absence. I could keep my scholarship for 8 years, and I could go back and finish my degree whenever I wanted. So because he kind of gave me that option, it was a no-brainer to give music a full shot.
Nice. Did you ever finish your degree?
I did not. I did not finish my degree. But I'm, maybe they'll give me an honorary degree at some point if I do something cool. We'll see.
Maybe crypto will be your way into earning that degree.
Well, maybe. Very well possible. Very well possible.
So what got you interested in blockchain and crypto in the first place?
Yeah. So my first kind of discovery of the distributed ledger tech space was through the Winklevoss twins. I befriended them for music, and they were working on Gemini at the time that I kind of discovered Bitcoin and discovered the technology underlying Bitcoin. And one of my earliest fascinations with the tech was how quickly and permissionlessly you could transfer value without having to go to a bank to send a wire or programming a wire online. The idea that you can transfer value anywhere in the world within, a short amount of minutes. I shouldn't say 45 seconds, depending on the gas fee, but the fact that you can move money around so quickly and permissionlessly was extremely interesting to me. And then as kind of, in 2017, when the ICO kind of craze happened, I started seeing the potential of dApps and decentralized apps that could potentially disrupt the music business and make the music business a lot better. And so I've always been fascinated by the intersection of distributed ledger tech and music. But more recently, I've been super excited about the NFT space and its potential in engaging fans on a deeper level, and its potential in making music a more monetizable and interesting product for an artist to pursue. As you know, music itself has never been the main revenue source for a musician. It's always been the touring. But since COVID hit, a lot of musicians have been forced to rethink everything they know about their industry. And NFTs have been an incredible outlet for myself and my art director, Slime Sunday, to kind of monetize our artwork in this kind of crazy time. And I feel really lucky that, combined, Slime Sunday and I have done close to $500,000 in sales between both of us in the past 4 months of NFTs. And we're just looking to expand upon what we've built so far and take take our NFT game and collectible game to the next level.
Okay, so amazing summary. Let's backtrack a little bit on. So you became interested in distributed ledger tech and crypto. Sorry about that. And so you started looking at ways into how NFTs could connect with your audience and just make it a better way of just directly monetizing your music. So what exactly were those like first experiments with NFTs?
So 2 years ago in 2018, I threw a music festival that had a reward system that was powered by Stellar. And basically, if you were at the music festival, you could download the festival app and scan QR codes on site to earn, kind of a non-transferable Stellar token that, you could also redeem for rewards at the festival. This festival was called OMF. And it was a great success. We had 8,000 people there. We had tons of Stellar transactions. A lot of people were scanning the QR codes to get their free non-transferable tokens. But one of the things that we piloted was a Blau badge token. So if you found me wandering the festival, almost like a scavenger hunt, and you scanned my QR code on my phone, you got a 1 of 50 Blau badge that was an exclusive, digital asset that you could only get in that moment and by finding me at the festival. And when we announced that, so many people were so excited about scanning my phone. I was just mobs with people that were super excited about obtaining this rare digital asset. That at the time, it was just a fungible Stellar token, but that was the first time that I saw there was real demand for a collectible digital asset that lives on the blockchain. So that was in 2018. And as time went on, I started to kind of notice this trend in the visual art space, more specifically with, Trevor Jones. Trevor Jones had sold editions of his crypto bull for, I think the highest one went for $55,000 on Nifty Gateway. And that got me thinking, well, this is a new appreciation for digital creations that we haven't seen before. And the reason why it exists, on the blockchain is because of provenance and because of verifiability. And, ETH kind of uniquely powered this new movement where artists could monetize their digital work. And that we had never really seen before, because when you think of something that's digital, you think that it's, easily replicatable and easily copied. So the fact that you could create a specific identity for a piece of digital art was super fascinating to me, especially because, the traditional art world, you have pieces that sell for millions of dollars. But digital artists spend just as much time on their art as a physical artist does. A painter might spend 2 weeks on a painting or, months and months of time on a painting. I very often will spend, years on one song. But there's no way to kind of capture that value until what we've seen lately with the NFT space. And so I started kind of exploring this stuff about 4 or 5 months ago with exclusive audio reactive visual art. And now I'm starting to think about, well, what does a tokenized collectible layer of a song look like? Because just tokenizing the audio isn't really enough. And that's kind of what I've been working on for the past month or so, more specifically, is what does it mean to tokenize a song? And, what are the different ways that that's possible? And so that's kind of what my focus has been lately.
Well, and I'd love to hear more about how you've been experimenting with this idea of collecting a song, tokenizing a song. I know you've already kind of launched different collections on Nifty Gateways, and selling kind of unreleased NFTs linked to NFTs linked to unreleased songs. All of that. Can you explain what that's about and how that's gone?
Yeah, absolutely. So thus far, I kind of teamed up with my art director and we created an alias called SSX Blau, so Slime Sunday times Blau. And through that alias, we've been releasing audio-visual loops and pieces that have unreleased music and unreleased visual content. But I have yet to do a drop from my personal name, just from Blau, because I haven't really known what would make sense when you think about tokenizing just a song. It's been kind of a difficult problem that I've been struggling with. It makes sense to tokenize a visual that has an audio component, but just tokenizing audio isn't interesting enough. So more recently, I finally stumbled upon an answer to that question. What does it mean to create a collectible layer of a song? Because all my fans will go listen to the song on Spotify. You could buy the song for 99 cents on iTunes, but how do you create a limited edition of that song? The same way, there's only one Mona Lisa, but you can see the Mona Lisa on Google, as from tons of different places. How do I give fans and collectors the ability to have a limited edition of my song? And so I kind of came up with this formula that we're piloting on January 22nd with Nifty Gateway. And it's a formula that I'm really excited about. So on the 22nd, I have a new song called Everything. The name of the song is Everything, that's coming out. And we've kind of created this 3-layer approach to what it means in making a song collectible. Layer number 1 is the visual. So every song has artwork or an album artwork. And that's what people see when they're on Spotify and they're playing the song. So one layer that we're tokenizing is the artwork of the song itself, which is the visual layer. The second layer that we're tokenizing is the audio. So just an audio file hosted on IPFS that's tokenized. And the third layer is a physical layer, which is something that we haven't really explored yet. And the physical layer is actually a sound block. So it's an acrylic block that has the audio waveform etched into it with a QR code that links to the NFT. So again, we've kind of created this framework, which is a visual, audible, physical framework. So those 3 elements kind of make up a collectible song. And on Nifty Gateway, all you'll have to do is purchase the kind of visual layer. And then we're planning on airdropping the audio layer and physically mailing the physical layer to those collectors. And that would kind of be the first collectible song in existence, to my knowledge, at least on a broader or mainstream scale. So we're extremely excited about it. It's our little experiment and our first pilot. But if it goes well, I imagine I'll be tokenizing all of my future releases when they come out and making those songs available for a very limited amount of time. And let's say one of these songs goes on to be a huge hit. I imagine those the collectible editions of the song that are limited in nature will have substantial value in the future. So that's kind of our short-term approach to what it means in tokenizing a song. In the long term, I would love to have collectors and buyers share in the royalties of the music itself. And that would be achieved by a collector owning a portion of the master recording rights of the song via token. But of course, that makes the token a security. So that's another thing that I'm exploring and exploring the legalities of that I hope to launch in the next couple of months as well. But yeah, the first step is just making a song collectible, and the second step is seeing how royalties can be distributed to those who own a piece of a song.
Wow, that's so interesting. Very cool. Okay, so on the collectible song, can you take me through the mechanics of it? So your fans will
Sure.
be able to buy kind of the visuals on Nifty Gateways, and then they will also be able to access the IPFS file of the song itself, and then you would mail them the physical block with the kind of sound wave etched onto it.
We can call it a physical token, right? It's a physical collectible of the song.
Right.
That will be limited by the amount of editions that are minted. And so, because a lot of these drops have sold out really quickly, we're actually doing this as an open edition. So within 10 minutes, as many editions are minted are the editions that will exist. And after those 10 minutes, no editions will ever be minted. And it will kind of come from my wallet address. So it's verifiably me. And yeah, and anyone who purchases it on Nifty Gateway will have access to those 3 layers, that visual layer, the audible layer, and the physical layer.
With the audible layer, though, anyone can really access that, right?
So anyone can access the song on Spotify, but only those wallets that purchase the NFT will have the kind of limited edition audio file. So you can think of it as, anyone can go look at, a piece of Beeple artwork on his Instagram, but there are a limited number of people that actually own, editions of that official artwork. It's kind of the same.
Right. So the audio would be uploaded and linked to kind of an ERC 721 token?
Correct.
Okay, got it. How I'm sure you've modeled this or thought about this. How many people do you expect to participate in this 10-minute sale?
So Slime Sunday, just my art director he's done some drops on his own. And he just did a similar idea, a digital, a visual physical hybrid, where the open edition, anyone who purchased the open edition would also get a coffee table book that has a QR code that links to the NFT on it. And he did 260 something in volume. And because it's only 10 minutes, we expect probably a couple hundred in terms of quantity. And, those are the only editions that will ever exist. And we're also going to do a one-of-one auction for a special edition that only one person will own. What makes that NFT a bit different is it will be a video visualizer of the song that we're only going to create one of. So that's kind of the second layer to this. But yeah, we anticipate like probably hundreds of people participating in the open edition, and then of course one of one for the auction.
And in terms of pricing, how does that work? It just
kind of whatever we set it, just based on comps and previous sales. The open edition will be set at $999, and then the auction will go for whatever it goes for. So that'll be exciting.
So the open edition is just set at that price, like it doesn't increase or decrease with like demand.
It'll be set at that price for 10 minutes, and then of course, people can choose to resell it if they want to in the aftermarket.
Okay. How does the secondary market work for that? I guess like just wherever NFTs are traded?
Yeah. So Nifty Gateway has its own secondary. And then of course people can withdraw the NFT from Nifty and sell it anywhere if they choose to. But the artist typically gets about 10% of the resales that in terms of, sales volume. And we'll probably similar for this drop. But most of the platforms have their own native secondary markets. And then, of course, because of, ETH interoperability, you can technically sell it anywhere you want.
Right. Okay. And then that gets me to this like important question that I wanted to ask, which is how does this model of selling NFTs on these kind of semi-permissionless or permissionless applications compare with selling your songs through a record label or just using Spotify to distribute them? What's kind of you talked about how crypto enables a different like monetization model for musicians and artists. How does it actually work out and compare to the traditional model?
I think people think of music, music's always been pervasive in the sense that you can listen to it kind of anywhere. And if you have a Spotify account, you can access a song. But no one who listens to the song actually owns the song. They don't have that direct connection to the music. They're just listeners. So we're basically just creating this layer that people can choose to own something through. And that hasn't existed in the past because, anyone can kind of access the audio file. And once someone has it, they can download it. They can upload it to a variety of services. It's very easily piratable and downloadable for free. But when it comes from my address, there's only a certain number of verified audio files that will ever exist. And that's kind of the game changer, right? Because as a musician, we've never really been able to limit the distribution of a digital file. But now that we can, those people that feel a really strong connection to this song can have a limited edition of the song. So that's kind of the big turning point here.
Okay, so it doesn't really stop people from reproducing your song and just like distributing it that way, but at least you do have control over this like unique version of the song.
Exactly. It's just like sneakers. If you think about my favorite example to use is Yeezys. There's so many fake Yeezys that you could buy for $40, $50. They're literally the exact same sneaker as the real Yeezys. The parts are made in the same factories. They're almost identical in nature, and they certainly work the same way, right? A sneaker is a sneaker for the most part. But there's something that people really want. That people want to own the real Yeezy. They don't want to own the fake Yeezy. And it's really as simple as that. People want to own the real collectible layer of the song because it's coming directly from me and because it has that unique nature to it. It's not just an audio file that's been copied. Granted, someone else can, rip the audio and tokenize it themselves, but it won't come from my address. So it won't be verifiably real. And we've seen the same thing in the traditional art world where people will make prints, limited edition prints. Andy Warhol prints will still sell for millions of dollars, even though there are multiple editions of them. But you could easily just go online and print it on your own canvas and hang it in your house if you really wanted to. But you don't own that. You just copied it, right? And so there's something that human beings really value in being an exclusive owner of something, whether it's digital or physical. And we're just kind of bringing that framework to music.
Very cool. Okay, so and in terms of what this means for the artist, so again, like, sure, like you can't stop people from reproducing, copying your music, but at least this gives you a way of benefiting from the upside, if your music is becoming more and more popular and people are wanting to kind of own a piece of it. You can benefit from that.
Exactly. So, I obviously have a lot of songs that are out there already, right? That we could tokenize if we wanted to, but it wouldn't really make sense because some of those songs have already grown in popularity. There's no kind of element of surprise or uncertainty with any of the existing music. So the reason why we're doing this collectible, we're kind of piloting this collectible layer with a song that's coming out in the future, is because the collectible layer will be available the day the song comes out. And if the song does grow in popularity substantially, that collectible could be worth a lot more in the future. And it's kind of nice to have that variable be unknown, right? If this song happens to become super popular, all those initial collectors that supported me might see a huge, benefit in their purchase. So I think it's really exciting to, create a collectible layer at the moment that a song comes out. I think that's really exciting. And this is the first time we're doing that. I think it's the first time anyone's doing that, at least to my knowledge. Tokenizing, creating a collectible layer of a new song is not something I've seen. I've seen like collectible editions of existing songs, but not something that's like brand new. That's dropping the same day as the song itself. So we're really excited to see how the collectors respond to it and how my fans respond to it. And I think it's going to be awesome. We're really excited.
Yeah, no, so, sounds exciting. And how much do you earn from that? Like as a percentage of the NFTs that are sold on Nifty Gateway, how much does that actually go to you?
So in my case, through Nifty Gateway, it's about 80%. And that's because Nifty has such a broad audience and a very loyal collector audience. Down the road, I imagine we can do direct to consumer sales where I keep 100%. I think it's just still early. It's nice to have a partner in promoting a drop. And so I think, any platform is certainly deserving of their commission. But in the spirit of decentralization down the road, I do think a lot of this stuff will be direct.
Interesting. And okay, so now can you tell me more about this idea of just, sharing rights with your fans?
So that's the next layer. That's the next level of what I really want to achieve. The idea of letting fans actually invest in the music itself is super interesting because music actually does generate quite a substantial amount of cash flows. And it's been growing in the past 5 years thanks to streaming services. The issue is that most artists don't own their own rights. They usually sell their rights to a record label early on in their career, and then they don't really control their rights or ownership of the song at all. In my case, most of my music has been released independently in the past 5 years. And so I control 100% of the rights. And if I wanted to sell a portion of those rights to my fans or to investors, those investors could potentially participate in the royalties and the cash flows from that music. And, in some cases, some of my songs have generated over $200,000, $300,000 in royalty revenue. And so, I'm imagining a world where every song has a investable layer. So not only do you have a collectible layer of the song, but you also have an investable layer of the song where, collectors actually participate in the upside if the song is successful. The issue with that in the short term is that it's definitely a security, right? So if we were to do a sale and tell collectors that they would participate in the royalties, we would be essentially marketing a security. But I do think that down the road, as the regulatory environment becomes more clear, and as if people are willing to KYC in, we could easily do an equity issuance in my music today. It's just not as permissionless as distributed ledger tech would like. So would like it to be. So in the long term, I do think that artists will start to raise capital from their fan bases instead of from a record label. And I think that would really help disintermediate the music business in a huge way.
I mean, I think from like NFTs and selling this collectible layer is like certainly super interesting. But I think this is what is really kind of a game changer in terms of where the music business is going, because it really does give you kind of a viable way forward to continue producing music without needing the support of a record label.
Exactly. So this is kind of step one, and we have to start somewhere, right? It's kind of hard to go from 0 to 100. I think step one is creating this collectible layer, but step two is definitely allowing collectors and fans to invest in the song itself. And that's kind of my main mission. But I do think that, taking a step in the right direction is just as important. And, down the line, we very well may integrate some of these concepts together. But these things take time, as you know, and it's definitely an exciting first step.
Definitely. So just to get kind of this futuristic idea of music clear, the idea would be that a music producer would be able to say, okay, I'm launching a new record to his fans, and instead of taking a I don't know how it's done, like a pilot or a sample song to a record label to sell that album and sell those rights, you would do that just through your own like channels to your fans, and be like, instead of like having an ICO, you would do that, but with like an album and with music, and people would invest in that.
Exactly. And then they would participate in the royalties. So let's say we raise $1 million for a new album. And those token holders own 50% of the album, which obviously it's a security. But let's say hypothetically, in a hypothetical world, I could do it today. When the album generates its first $1 million, we could either recoup those investors in full, and then they would participate in 50% of the upside beyond that. Or, when the album generates 5 million, those investors would, get a 2.5x return on their capital as a whole. There's a lot of ways to think about that. But the securities aspect of music tokens is super fascinating. It's just difficult from a legal standpoint. But I do think that the world is moving in that direction.
I mean, as you said, like an initial step might be just to do it with KYC, and then you could do it. That's
what we're doing. That's what we're doing it as pure. Like, we're not saying it's a utility or anything like that. We're gonna offer equity in my next album to investors, and we just have to KYC them. I'm working with a platform. I can't speak too much about it because we haven't announced it yet, but I'm working with a very reputable Reg CF seed funding platform to do that. But in the short term, it's a simple equity investment. But in the long term, we'd love to tokenize those shares so that the royalties could be distributed via smart contracts on a daily basis. If assuming gas isn't crazy, maybe a monthly basis. But down the line, I do think that tokenized equity in a song or in a catalog of songs is inevitable. It's going to happen, and I'm really excited that I'm exploring it. In the short term, creating a collectible layer of a song is the easiest kind of first step in that process.
Right. Wow. Okay. So you're already working on that, like taking steps towards that.
I've been working on it for about a year.
So interesting. Do you think there might be, like, in the future, just like a secondary market for albums and songs?
There actually is a market for there's a platform called Royalty Exchange where you can actually sell master recording rights in existing music. A lot of institutions will buy catalogs, like Michael Jackson catalog or the Beatles catalog, like big artists that are, when you think of music, people have never really thought of it as a recurring revenue stream, because in the past, in the iTunes days, you just bought it once and it was done. In 2021, now that streaming has generated such a substantial amount of income, you can think of music very similarly to a real estate asset that has recurring cash flow. And now that, owning those rights means that you're entitled to all future cash flows of that song, or that group of songs. And so it's still a very new realm. It's definitely only about 5 to 8 years old, and we're starting to see a lot of people explore. And, I'm just super excited. It's one thing to issue equity in existing music, but it's even more exciting to issue equity in new music, because the upside potential for new music is quite a bit greater.
It's interesting that you said this exchange happens today with big institutions trading rights to like huge artists and albums. Would be interesting to see that become more democratized, and it's not just institutions trading, these rights, but just anyone.
It's not just, Scooter Braun buying Taylor Swift's catalog. What if everyone could own a piece of Taylor Swift's catalog? Like, that's super exciting to me, because music kind of touches everyone. You could be a fan of an artist. If you were a fan of, the Chainsmokers 8 years ago, and you were investing in the Chainsmokers 8 years ago, how wealthy would you be today? These are real potentials that I think will exist in the future, democratizing access to these types of assets. And so, yeah, it's something that I'm super excited about. And, this NFT collectible is the first step in a long journey to do this with my music.
So cool. So I've seen, I had RAC in my podcast a few weeks ago. Now you're on. It seems like, there's kind of a greater and greater awareness in kind of the artist, musician, DJ, I don't know, community about crypto. You're obviously tuned in to this world. How are you seeing adoption and kind of awareness evolve? I mean, do you see more talk about crypto, or is it still like something that's pretty foreign to most artists?
With the bull run happening now, I do think a lot more and more people are exploring it. RAC is a very good friend of mine. I would say that we are two of a few musicians that are really excited about this space, and RAC has been involved even longer than I have, for a really long time, maybe 4 or 5 years. I've only been kind of active for about 3 or 4. And, he and I talk very frequently about this. I think the reason why we're both so passionate about the potential of distributed ledger tech disrupting music is because musicians have always been taken advantage of. And, there's a great statistic that 88% of all the money that's generated by the music business goes to middlemen, and artists keep about only 12% of the $40 billion that's generated annually from recorded music. So that's very ripe for disruption. There's a lot of middlemen that we could cut out along the way. And I think RAC and I, as we're both technologists, and we both love to see how technology disrupts, creative space. And I think, more and more artists will come on board as they see more success stories. I think that's kind of the biggest driver for the mainstream to onboard is the more success stories we see, success stories similar to Audius, where, they've reached over 1 million monthly active users in a very short period of time. As we see more of those successes, more people will start to explore it. But we're all kind of early believers here in something that we all know will have many great effects on our creative world. And it's just exciting to be a part of it and to be on the front lines.
Yeah, definitely. I do believe bull markets have kind of a way of obviously dragging people in with headlines and with price moves, but some end up staying for, because they see how radically this technology can actually change things and improve things. So
that was me too. I mean, I was probably driven in space via bull market, but then I stayed because I was super excited about technology. So it's kind of like there's a fish hook, and then there's, and then you're kind of, you're sunk. In my case, I was kind of hooked in by the bull market in 16, 17. And, then I ended up staying, and I'm very active now.
Very cool. Wanted to ask you about social tokens too. That's also kind of a tool for artists to monetize their and connect with their fan base. So is that something you're exploring as well?
So I think social tokens for me, and forgive me, I think Oh no, I'm good. I'm good until 1 o'clock. Social tokens for me are super, super interesting. I think that the infrastructure still needs a lot of work in terms of, how social tokens actually flow to a mainstream user. Cause it's, you still kind of need to have an understanding of Web3 wallets and whatnot to really use that, social token efficiently. I do think it's the future though. I definitely think that all artists will have some form of social token at some point in the future, and they'll all be freely tradable. On a Uniswap of sorts. But I do think we're still a couple of years away from seeing that achieve mainstream adoption. It's something that I'm personally excited about, but I'm a little bit more focused on NFTs and this idea of creating equity in my music, only because it's a little bit easier to deal with on the legal side. The social tokens are a little bit complicated on the legal side. I think that there are great justifications for most social tokens being a utility. I think most social tokens, as they are right now, are probably utilities, but there's also a little bit of securities risk in issuing a social token that I'm super sensitive to. That doesn't mean that I don't think anyone will get a penalty or get pursued by the SEC, because it's not like people are raising hundreds of millions of dollars issuing social tokens. But I do think it's important to pay some mind to the regulatory environment and how that might affect the issuance of social tokens. All that being said, I think that the same way NFTs have seen this massive boom in the past year, I think social tokens will see a similar boom in the next 2 to 4 years.
Well, and then to wrap up, what do you think is missing for artists to become more involved in crypto and to use these tools? Like, what would you like to see built this year?
Yeah, I think UX UI is the biggest barrier. I think that MetaMask is difficult for a new user. I think that wallet tools need to be a little bit improved for the mainstream before we see this massive influx of users. But platforms like Audius are doing that. They kind of demystify and hide the distributed ledger tech component of the app so that it just works for any user who wants to sign on. And there are more and more people that are creating mainstream friendly UI UX experiences. And as those tools are created, I think we're going to see more adoption.
Great. And then I guess just your kind of big picture for this. I don't know if you call it experiment, but starting out with this NFT for the first NFT for an original song, for an unreleased song, is the idea to make all your songs to release all your songs this way?
Yeah, the idea is to kind of create a new format for all my future songs so that people can purchase this collectible layer as these new songs come out. And another thing that we're going to experiment with is tokenizing unreleased music, but without necessarily an audio visual, without it being just a partial song. So all the NFTs that we've issued thus far have all been segments of a song instead of the full song. I would love to tokenize unreleased songs as full songs, as complete ideas, and have those be exclusive to those collectors. So it's kind of probably the future looks like a combination of tokenizing new songs as they come out, and then also tokenizing unreleased songs as full songs. These are kind of the two things that I'm exploring while we get ready to do an equity issuance in my next album.
Amazing. So exciting. All right. Well, Justin, thank you so much for taking the time. This has been super interesting, and really looking forward to seeing all this come to fruition.
Same. Thank you so much for taking the time yourself. And I'm a huge fan of the podcast and of the publication. And hopefully all the listeners enjoyed the talk.